Hello everyone. So today we will continue our LWC series and the main topic for today is child to parent communication. But before we jump onto that, let's cover few basic topics. Okay. First, we will be covering what are getters and setters in LWC. And then we will see what is shadow DOM in LWC. And then we will cover the child to parent communication. Okay. And I'm going to take very basic, simple examples. So all those people who already have advanced knowledge in LWC, feel free to share your examples in the group with other people. But we will be very basic because we'll have to cover the fundamental of the topic. Okay. So no complex example unless everybody is comfortable with the basic topics. Okay. So this I'm going to start with getters and setters, and to do that let me create a lightning web component. Let me know if you are able to see the Lightning Studio screen.
Yes.
All right, so I will be creating a lightning web component. I will name it setter parent. Okay, and I'm going to expose it. I'm going to add it on a record page, and similar to this I will create a setter child as well. Okay, we use getters and setters whenever, see, from the name itself, it is very clear that getters will be used to get the value, setters will be used to set the value. So let's say if a parent is passing certain value to a child component, we earlier we have seen that we used to get those value with the API decorated property. Now, in this example, first we will see how we used to do that earlier, and then we will change that example to getters and setters to understand how they are working. Okay. And then I'll tell you when do we use it in a real project. Okay. So we will be covering everything. All right. So let's open these two components. Let me first set up the basic structure on them, and then we will write down the example. Okay, so let me open the lightning card, add a lightning card on it. Let me call it setter parent and save it, copy it, setter child, save it. Okay, now let's say if I have a property, let's say name. Let's say we have a property in the parent component, details in parent. Okay, this is a parent components property and I'm using details in parent. I'm specifically adding parent in the name because people will not get confused. Otherwise, it will look similar and obviously new people will get confused. Okay, so let's say it has two properties. Okay, similar to what we did earlier. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm using same example. First name, and we have last name. Let's say first name and last name. Now this is a property in parent. Also, let me add the child component in parent components HTML. Okay. So my child component is setter child. Let me add it. Okay. And then let me create a property in my child component as well. Okay, the name property which I am sending from parent, I need to have a property in child as well to hold the value of it. Okay, so let me add it like whatever we want to set the name of it. Let me set the name is whatever the name we have set, details in parent. Let's say we will call it details in child. Okay, and save it. Now we know that we'll have to decorate it with @API. Then only our parent will be able to pass value to it. Okay. And once we get the value in it, we'll have to display it on the HTML. Okay. So let me add, this is child components content. Let me add the content in child component and let me call it as first name, and first name will be, let me write down the last name as well. Let me add a break. Okay. And first name will be details in child dot first name, and last name will be details in child dot last name. Yes, hi Aishwarya, go ahead.
Yeah, Mohit. Mohit, I can see that you have used an object here, details in child, right? And inside that you are putting the attributes. So,
Mhm.
is this the best way to access the data from child to parent, uh, or just the usual way which we do, just by declaring and then going ahead?
See, because our parent is passing an object. Okay, this is an object which has two properties, first name and last name. That is why I am just creating a property. And because I know that my parent is passing an object which will have key first name and key last name, that is why I'm using them. If it is just a name, let's say a simple name, a string, then string will
Mm.
be fine. So depending on what data we are passing, child has to just play along with the parent. Okay. In this case,
Okay.
child just has to play along with the parent because parent holds the key. Parent is passing something, child has to be aware about what parent is passing. Here we are not telling it whether it is an object or anything. Okay, once you get the data
Mm.
in it, you can try to console it to see what it is. And based on that, you can reframe your HTML. Okay,
Okay.
you may not be aware about what you are getting from parent every time. So in that case, you will just debug it and you will see, okay, this is object. So maybe let's just get to know what are the properties of it and then iterate over it. So child has to just play along with it. If it is just a simple string, or let's say you are passing the list of 10 accounts, that is also fine. You will just create account list property here. Okay, and then you will render it on your HTML based on the key and value. So then in that case, key will be ID. You will get the list of it, and then how you display it on the data table, you will follow the same way. Okay.
Okay.
Hmm. Okay, so this is nothing new. This is what we have done in the last session as well. Parent is passing something to child, okay, as an object, and child is receiving it. This is nothing new we are doing, but because we'll have to understand set getters and setters, we'll have to first know that what is the normal way of doing it, and then we will try to change it to getters and setters. So first we will see if we are able to get the data by this way or not, and then we will change our approach. So let's go to our Salesforce screen. Let me maximize it a little bit. Okay, I think it is too much. Okay, let's go to the edit page. Let's go and find the setter. Setter parent, we just need to put it here. Child will already be there. Okay. Okay, it is not able to understand the first name, which is strange. Let's see what mistakes we have done. Okay. First name and last name, which is fine. First name and last name, which is fine.
Hey, hi, Mohit. I think we cannot build a communication with C hyphen child name in parent.
Okay, just a second. Oh, obviously, this is wrong structure we have written. This is spelling mistake. Just a second. Sorry, what you were saying? What we cannot do? This is the right.
We cannot call the child component from parent. C hyphen child name and mention the
No,
property.
this is you are using for like kind of Aura framework. For LWC, you should go with C colon, right?
Yeah, right.
Mohit, you didn't define a child variable in this tag, like the details.
Just a
We
second.
have to assign
Yeah,
value
yeah.
from child tag.
All this structure, yeah, obviously, this is wrong, but we have not passed the data yet. This is right. This is the problem. We have not passed the data yet. So in child, we have this property, right? We'll have to pass the value to it also, right? Details in child. So it will be details in child, and then we'll have to pass the property to it. Details in parent. That is what we'll have to do. Okay. Without passing data, like obviously it will not do anything. And then obviously child will not be able to understand. So this is good. This is fine. Let's go back to Salesforce. Let's refresh it. Now try to get the setter. Yeah, it should be fine now. Changes saved. Let's go back. Refresh it. See, we are able to get the data in the child component and we have passed it via parent. So this is new, not new. We have done it earlier as well and it was fine. Now let us try to understand what are the getters and setters. We know why we use getters and setters when we have to get the value or set the value from the parent component. Okay. Yes, Manjunath, go ahead.
Can you please give me overview? I joined little late. What we have done?
Okay, okay, no problem. So this is something which we have done in the last session. We have a parent component, okay, and we have embedded a child component in it, and then we are passing an object from our parent component to the child component, okay, and then child component has a property details in parent, okay. This is what we have done parent to child communication in my last session, okay.
Yeah.
So the topic which you are covering first is getters and setters. Now, how we have passed data from parent to child and how child has taken that data in a single property, we are going to change it now. Okay. And we will use getters and setters now. Okay. So I am going to let me just remove this. Okay. And let me just call a name property, or let me call it user details. Okay. And this time I will be using an API decorator, but we will write a getter, get, and details in child. So we will be sending the, what is the name we are using here? Details in child. Okay. So we will be using same here. Get details in child as a method, get method, and as a set method. Details in child. Now, setter method always gets the data. This is the data which will be passed by the parent component. Okay. And then what setter does is that this dot user details equals to data. Okay, so whatever data we will be getting from my parent component, it will assign it to this property. That's it. Okay, we have created a local property. This property is local to the child component. Okay, we are not exposing this property outside. Okay, this is not a public property. We have created a local property in Salesforce in the LWC JavaScript file, and then we have created getters and setters. Setter will set the data. Okay, so user.detail will become equals to what data parent has passed, and getter will return that data. Return user details. Okay, this will return user details. Okay, now we'll have to make this is our HTML. So whenever details in child will be called, this getter will return you user detail. Okay, and then user detail will have the first name and last name. Okay, so this is basically a different way to do this. Now when we use it, see, the earlier approach was really good when we just need to pass the data and then display that data. But when we'll have to do some data modification in between, or let's say we have to do some if else statement while we set the data, if data is not null or not undefined, then do this, otherwise assign it a 0 or assign it 1 or whatever. When we have something some processing to do in that data, then getters and setters are more useful, because otherwise whatever data your parent will pass, your child will have to blindly accept that data. But if we use getters and setters, then we have the power to do the processing in it and then use it. Okay, getters and setters, you'll have to use the @API. Okay, because they both have same name, you just need to use it once. You need not to use it on in front of getters and setters both. Use it in front of either getter or setter. That will be fine for you. And okay, and they use together. Okay, you have to use them together. And let us first see if we are able to actually get the data or not, and then we will see what to do. So data we have not changed. Let us save it. Let us save it, and let's add something in the, this is updated, just to make sure that we are getting the latest data in it. Okay, and let's go to this, refresh this. User details is not defined. Okay, let us define that. Okay, got it. See, okay, we have made a mistake here. This dot user details, otherwise it will not be able to get it. Save it. Let's go back to the page and ship. Okay, so now even with the use of getters and setters, we are able to get the updated data. Okay, so this is why we use getters and setters whenever we'll have to set the value, get the value, and maybe we need to perform some additional processing in it. Then we use getters and setters. They are very useful. and there is a very important interview question in it, okay, which I first want you to find the answer, okay. Whenever, if an object is passed as data to setter, we have to sometimes create a shallow copy of that object, or we need to mutate the object, okay. So I want you to understand or learn what is spread operator first, and then I will explain this why we need to do that. But first, today you'll have to understand what is setters, and then this topic I will cover tomorrow, or I will give answer to. There is nothing to explain. I will just give answer to this tomorrow. Once you understand what is spread operator on your own. Okay? Will you do that for me? Those who don't know what is spread operator, write it down, please. Yes, no, guys?
Yes, Mohan.
Yes, Mohan.
No, Mohit? Why? Sorry? You don't want to learn it on your own? Guys, who are saying no to this?
We can learn.
Shubham,
Yes.
why are you saying no to this?
No. I don't know spread operator.
Okay, so you will try to learn it. Otherwise, I'll obviously teach you. I just
Yes,
want,
I will try to learn it. I will try to learn.
don't worry. So, and did you understand what is set getters and setters?
Actually, Mohit, I have one question.
Go ahead.
In getter and setter, what we have extra processing? Like you can say we can do extra processing in getter and setter. What kind of extra processing?
Okay. Let's say I want to say, okay, if the first name is null, then assign some random name XYZ to it. Otherwise, whatever first name is coming, assign it to the property user detail. Okay, so in that case, if you will not have setter, then if first name comes as null, then in the HTML of it, undefined will be displayed in place of this. So I want to have a null check here, and if it is null, then I want to just randomly assign XYZ name to it. So instead of undefined, and XYZ will be displayed here. But if you will not have setters, if you will get it in a direct property, then undefined will be displayed because you do not have any additional check to do. Getting my point?
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So this is simple. Nothing fancy. Do not think it from an overly complicated way or overly complex examples way. In an interview, you will have to explain it with the very simple example. That's what I'm telling you. Don't worry. Don't think too much about this. This is a very simple thing, but there will obviously be complex examples as well. And I will teach you those. Don't worry about it. But I first want you to be comfortable with the basic essence of it. Why do we use it? Okay. Let's say your parent is passing a number, but in return you want to so let's say your parent is passing 10. Okay, 10 to your child component, but from this setter you want to display, you want to return 10 into 2. But if you will get it directly, you will just get 10. Then you will have to pass 10 into 2. For that, you may need to create another property. Okay, so here in the setters, you can directly pass 10 into 2. You need not to create another property, and you can do all the processing within the setter itself and then return it via the getter. Okay,
Yes, Mohit. Okay.
perfect. So see, even Salesforce has a very basic example for this. If you go to the Salesforce playlist, Salesforce document, uh, getters and setters in LWC developer guide. Even you can try that as well. Okay. They have created this. So they have passed a number, and here they have, I think, passed a text, but they are converting it to uppercase. Okay, so you can even try that as well. Let me put it on chat. Okay. Okay, guys.
सर मतलब ये डेटा को मैनिपुलेट करने के लिए हम लोग गेटर और सेटर यूज करते हैं क्या?
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। मैनिपुलेट करने के लिए, कोई प्रोसेसिंग करने के लिए, कोई
प्रोसेसिंग
करने
में?
के लिए, कुछ भी आप करना चाहो। क्योंकि अगर सोचो आप डायरेक्टली प्रॉपर्टी में वैल्यू लोगे तो आप कुछ कर पाओगे?
नहीं, हाँ।
कर पाओगे, ठीक है। तो फिर करने के लिए आपको और प्रॉपर्टी बनानी पड़ेंगी। करने के लिए
हाँ।
आपको हो सकता है एक मेथड कॉल करना पड़ जाए, और सारे मतलब जुगाड़ लगाने पड़ेंगे, ठीक है। बट
हम्म।
अगर आपके पास
हम्म।
सेटर है तो वो काम आप डायरेक्टली कर सकते हो, आपको कुछ भी जुगाड़ लगाना नहीं पड़ेगा, ठीक है।
हाँ, ठीक ठीक है सर।
चलो, दूसरा कॉन्सेप्ट करते हैं, शैडो डोम, ठीक है।
Wait, one question.
गो एहेड।
What is the sequence of this in compare with connected callbacks or wire
कनेक्टेड कॉल बैक और वायर।
execution sequence?
हम्म I don't think they fall in the life cycle hooks.
No, they don't fall, but when they get executed.
Constructor, I think after the constructor, they should get the value, but I'll confirm it. I don't want to say this right now.
Even I have ambiguity
Huh.
kind of answers for this in my mind. So
Let,
I'm just getting clarified.
let me check this, okay?
Hmm.
And will actually the setter or getters will be called, okay?
Yeah.
See,
This
देखो
is a
क्या
good
होता है
question.
जब जब एक्चुअली देखो, अगर आप लाइफ साइकिल हुक को भी फॉलो करोगे ना, तो क्या बोलता है वो कि आपकी जब कंस्ट्रक्टर कॉल हो जाएगा ना, उसके बाद ही इसमें वैल्यू आएगी, क्योंकि इफ देयर इज अ पब्लिक प्रॉपर्टी टू अपडेट, तो वो पहले अपडेट होंगी, उसके बाद कंपोनेंट इंसर्ट होगा डोम में, ठीक है। तो जब पहले तो पेरेंट का कंस्ट्रक्टर कॉल होगा, ठीक है। फिर पेरेंट के पास, तो इस वाले एग्जांपल को देखते हैं, ठीक है, अपना जो करंट एग्जांपल है, इसको अगर हम देखते हैं, ठीक है। इफ वी सी अवर करेंट एग्जांपल, तो अभी अपना पेरेंट कंपोनेंट है सबसे पहले, ठीक है। तो पेरेंट कंपोनेंट कॉल हुआ, कंस्ट्रक्टर कॉल कॉल हुआ, पेरेंट कंपोनेंट के पास देर इज नो पब्लिक प्रॉपर्टी, तो फिर कंपोनेंट इंसर्ट हो जाएगा, कनेक्टेड कॉल बैक होगा, कंपोनेंट रेंडर होगा, ठीक है। देन यहाँ पर आएगा, वो बोलेगा ओके वी हैव अ चाइल्ड कंपोनेंट एज वेल। तो फिर क्या होगा, फिर से लाइफ साइकिल स्टार्ट होगा, चाइल्ड कंपोनेंट का कंस्ट्रक्टर कॉल होगा, एंड देन वो क्या बोलेगा कि चाइल्ड कंपोनेंट के पास कोई पब्लिक प्रॉपर्टी है क्या, so this is public. Getters and setters are public properties also. Okay. So at that time, this will fetch data. इसको डेटा मिलेगा उस टाइम पे बिफोर वो कंपोनेंट को इंसर्ट करे डोम पे, मतलब चाइल्ड कंपोनेंट के इंसर्ट हो डोम पे इंसर्ट होने से पहले दे विल गेट द डेटा। सो कंस्ट्रक्टर कॉल होगा, उसके बाद दिस पब्लिक प्रॉपर्टीज विल गेट वैल्यू, सो एट दैट टाइम ओनली इट विल गेट द डेटा। ओके, आइडियली दिस विल बी द केस,
Uh,
आई विल आल्सो रीचेक इट, ठीक है।
Mohit, one doubt. Here, like getters and setters are methods, right? So how come we are saying it that the getters and setters are public property?
They, yeah, see, that is why we have appended the API decorators in front of them, because they used to manipulate the property only. Okay, even though they are special method, but their whole function is to get the data and set the data. Okay, so they comes under the public properties where we will get the data from parent component and set it accordingly. Okay, but I will also recheck it. Okay, just
Huh.
note it down somewhere. I have noted it
Hmm.
down. We will
Yeah, yeah, because a method and property, there is a difference between a
Hmm,
method and
100%. I
property.
understand. I understand. I
Huh.
understand. I will recheck it also. ठीक है?
I agree with your explanation, whatever you said. I believe that is the way.
Yeah, but let's recheck it. Okay, then we will have a final verdict on this. ठीक है मंजुला?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Perfect. Let's do one more thing. Okay. In the same example, let's try.
सर,
Yeah.
हेलो।
Hi.
हाँ, बोल रहा हूँ कि सर ये सेटर के ऊपर एपीआई डेकोरेटर हमने क्यों नहीं लगाया?
किसी एक पे भी लगा दो, आप दोनों पे भी लगाना चाहो दोनों पे भी लगा सकते हो, बट सेल्सफोर्स बोलता है किसी एक पे भी लगा दो, दोनों का नाम सेम है तो दोनों पे अप्लाई हो जाता है, ठीक है।
ओके।
किसी पे भी
ठीक
लगा
ठीक।
दो, मगर आप दोनों पे भी लगाओगे तो एरर नहीं आएगा, वो भी
मतलब
उसको।
काउंट एक ही होगा, मतलब ये दो
हाँ,
मेथड है, अलग मेथड है या एक ही
दोनों
मेथड है?
दोनों का नाम भी एक ही है, इस वजह से वो दोनों एक ही है। किसी एक पे भी अगर आप @API लगाओगे तो चलेगा, ठीक है। बट अगर दोनों पे भी लगाते हो तो भी कोई एरर नहीं आएगा, ठीक है।
ठीक ठीक
बट
है।
हाँ, एक पे लगाना जरूर पड़ेगा। और ऐसा भी कर सकते हो, आपने ऊपर गेटर लिखा, बी फिर नीचे सेटर लिखा एंड देन सेटर पे एपीआई लगाया, दैट इज ऑल्सो फाइन। किसी एक पे लगा दो, कोई भी सीक्वेंस पे रखो, ठीक है।
ठीक ठीक है, ओके, थैंक यू।
नो प्रॉब्लम। लेट्स डू दी अदर थिंग। अब शैडो डोम क्या होता है? देखो, शैडो डोम मैंने आपको बेसिक सा बताया था क्या होता है कि शैडो डोम के थ्रू हम लोग इनकैप्सुलेशन लाते हैं, ठीक है। एचटीएमएल में क्या होता है, हमारे जो एचटीएमएल इज अ ट्री लाइक स्ट्रक्चर, ठीक है। जो उसका मेन एलिमेंट होता है, जब जब कभी भी आप इफ यू चेक द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ एचटीएमएल, दे विल बी एन एचटीएमएल टैग, सबसे ऊपर एचटीएमएल टैग होगा। देन दे विल बी हेड, दे विल बी बॉडी, बॉडी के अंदर बहुत सारे टैग्स होंगे, ठीक है। तो शैडो डोम के थ्रू क्या होता है, हम विद इन पेज एक और शैडो रूट क्रिएट करते हैं, और उस शैडो रूट के अंदर बहुत सारे एलिमेंट्स होते हैं, ठीक है। The purpose is that whatever we do inside that shadow dome should not get affected by whatever we do outside of that shadow dome, ठीक है। लेट्स से हमारा एक मेन पेज था, उसके अंदर हमने एक छोटा सा सेक्शन बनाया, ठीक है। हमने उसको बोला कि दिस सेक्शन इज पार्ट ऑफ शैडो डोम। तो हम अगर ऊपर कुछ भी कर रहे हैं, उससे हमारे जो शैडो डोम का पार्ट है वो अफेक्ट नहीं होना चाहिए। देखो, ठीक है, सिंपल सा फंडा है। अदरवाइज नॉर्मली क्या होता है जावास्क्रिप्ट में, जो कुछ भी पेज में होता है, जो कुछ भी उस वेब ब्राउजर के पेज में होता है, उस वो पूरे पेज में अफेक्ट करता है, ठीक है। लेट्स से आपने कोई हैंडलर लिखा, या लेट्स से आपने, जैसे आपका मेन टैग था HTML वाला डॉक्यूमेंट टैग, ठीक है। अगर आपने डॉक्यूमेंट डॉट बैकग्राउंड कलर रेड कर दिया तो वो पूरे पेज का बैकग्राउंड रेड कर देगा, ठीक है। बट अगर आपके पेज में एक छोटा सा सेक्शन है जो शैडो डोम में है, जो इसका खुद का डोम अपने आप में है, देन वो पूरे पेज को रेड करेगा एक्सेप्ट दैट वो छोटा वाला सेक्शन। तो दैट छोटा वाला सेक्शन इज नोन एज द शैडो डोम, ठीक है। अब LWC में बाय डिफॉल्ट शैडो डोम इम्प्लीमेंटेड है, ठीक है। दैट मीन्स कि जो कुछ भी हमने टेम्पलेट टैग के बीच में लिखा हुआ है, दैट इज इटसेल्फ अ शैडो डोम, ठीक है। LWC में बाय डिफॉल्ट शैडो डोम इम्प्लीमेंटेड है। दैट मीन्स कि हमने पूरे पेज में क्या करना है, और पेज में, क्योंकि बिकॉज इन अ सिंगल पेज वी ऐड सो मेनी डिफरेंट लाइटनिंग कंपोनेंट्स, ओके। सो लेट्स से देयर इज अ पेरेंट कंपोनेंट, देयर इज अ चाइल्ड कंपोनेंट। अगर हम पेरेंट कंपोनेंट में कुछ लेट्स से CSS सेट करते हैं, ठीक है, तो वो, और सेम CSS हम चाइल्ड में सेट करते हैं, तो पेरेंट वाली जो है वो चाइल्ड को ओवरराइड नहीं करेगी, ठीक है। ऐसा सिंपल सा फंडा है। लेट्स सी विद द हेल्प ऑफ एग्जाम्पल।
मोहित, मोहित एक बार फिर से रिपीट करोगे ये पॉइंट?
ठीक है, मैं एक बार फिर से एग्जाम्पल के थ्रू करता हूँ, देन फिर से बताता हूँ, ठीक है।
हम्म।
छोटा सा एक एग्जांपल करते हैं, इसी 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 वाले एग्जांपल में हम लोग ऐड करते हैं, ठीक है। वी हैव टू कंपोनेंट्स, एक है पेरेंट, एक है चाइल्ड, ठीक है। या श्योर, श्योर श्वेता, विल टॉक इन इंग्लिश नाउ। सी, वी हैव अ पेरेंट कंपोनेंट एंड वी हैव अ चाइल्ड कंपोनेंट, ठीक है। अब हम क्या करते हैं, एक छोटा सा डिव सेक्शन बनाते हैं।
फिर से हिंदी में आ
या सॉरी सॉरी, आई एम सो सॉरी,
गए।
sorry. Okay, let's create a div section first, and then whatever we are going to do, we will put inside that div, ठीक है। And in the parent components HTML, I am creating a div section, okay. And let's say I'm going to create a p tag inside it. This is parent component, okay. And whatever we, this child component we put inside the div section and save it. In the child component also, let's create a div section. I am going to remove this because we no longer need it. We are doing a separate example. This is the child components content. Let's save this. So what we did, in the parent component, we created a div tag. In the child component also, we created a div tag. But the child component is already inside the parent component. Okay. Till now, all simple, nothing fancy. Let's create two CSS file for our parent components. Okay. So how do we create it in this? You click on the component, create a new file, and you name it same name. Okay. So it is setter component, setter parent, and then we will change the file type to CSS and save it. So now we have a setter child, setter CSS as well. Okay. Similarly, we will create a CSS file over child component as well. Okay, sorry. This is for the child only. Let me rename it. Okay, we are in the parent component, so let's create a file for the parent component. Sorry, child component. Setup child CSS. Save it. Then create a setter for parent. CSS for parent component. We'll call it setter parent CSS. Okay. Now let's pass red color in the parent component. There is a div tag, right? So in the div tag, I'm going to pass and this is parent component CSS. In the parent component CSS, in the div tag, I am passing red color. So this div is starting from here and goes up to the line 6. So child component also comes inside this div tag and I am passing red color to it. Okay, saving it. In the child component CSS, I am passing the blue color. But because child component is inside the parent component's div, and in the parent component div, I am passing the red color, whole div section should be red color. Even though we are passing the red color in the child components div, because the whole child component inside parents div component, this whole should be red color because we are passing red color in the parent components div. Okay, this is how ideally it works without shadow DOM. Okay. But because Salesforce by default provide shadow DOM in the Lightning Web Component, that is not going to be the case. Why it is double? This is updated file components component. Just a second.
Remove the initial lines.
Sorry.
Do not remove the line from child. Child.
Okay, got it. That is also a clarification, right? Good. No problem. That will help us only. So now if you see here, parent component got red color, but whatever the section we have on the child component, which is inside the div, that has got the blue color. So what CSS we have particularly mentioned for the child components div has not been overridden by the parent components GSS. This is happening because of the shadow DOM only, because this child components div section, whatever CSS property we have defined to it, is not getting affected by what we have done on the parent. Okay, so parent will obviously pass everything to child component, but the section where we have specifically defined something within child, that has not been overwritten by the parent component CSS. So this line is outside of the div in the child. That is why this has got the red color. But this where we have a specifically defined the CSS in the child component, that has got the CSS of what we have defined in the child. That has not been overwritten by the parent. That is why in the Lightning Web Component, Shadow DOM is by default defined. So if we define the CSS for the same tag in parent and same tag in child specific CSS will be applied to child and parent will not override it. What happens if we use important in the parent? You try to use it and tell me what happens. And you
It
will,
remains same. It will not impact, I believe.
yeah, it will not impact because that is a part of shadow DOM. So
Shadow DOM,
now
yeah.
it apply to whatever we do in the parent. And if the, let's say we have two conflicting things in the parent, then that will, check the precedency and all those things. Okay. So this is basic of Shadow DOM, but understand Shadow DOM is a JavaScript concept. In an interview, they try to make it bit fancy and they may try to ask it. This has nothing to do or play in the LWC a lot. This is good from the interview point of view, but in the real in components, you will not be, playing a lot with the Shadow DOM or a lot of things. There are a lot of other things which comes within Shadow DOM. I will try to send you a link for that. They might ask questions within what is shadow root. Okay, what is the benefits of Shadow DOM, why we use it. So we saw one benefit of it or one use case of it where we'll have to, play with CSS. Same goes for the event propagation as well. In LWC, there is something called event propagation. Okay, event propagation means when we fire an event goes from bottom to up or come from top to bottom, or we can say events goes from child to parent or bottom to top or from top to bottom. So that is basically known as event propagation. I'll teach you event propagation, what it is. There are two phases, bubble phase and capture phase. We will talk about it in a while, don't worry. Okay, but the whole purpose is that it creates a shadow boundaries. Okay, thus it creates the encapsulation. That's it. That is the whole purpose of it. In my notes, I have written, if you have to attach a shadow DOM manually in your HTML file, how you gonna do that? So you will do it with the help of JavaScript. In the JavaScript, there is something called attach shadow. Okay, and then by this tag, so whatever element on which you want to attach the shadow, you will use element dot attach shadow. And then there is something called mode, open or closed. And then whatever you want to add inside that shadow, let's say you want to just to add a p tag or you want to add a whole div, that is what you can do. But that is more into the JavaScript or HTML side of it rather than the LW side of it. So if you're preparing for an interview, just want to focus on what is important. Just know what I have told you about Shadow DOM. That's it. Move on. Try to learn more thing, other thing which are more important than this for you to work more on the LWC. Okay, but if you want to explore more on the JavaScript side of it, try to explore a good playlist on JavaScript and you will get ample amount of content on Shadow DOM. Okay, clear guys?
So Mohit, whenever we say shadow DOM, we refer to a child component, right?
Not child component. I'll not say child component. This is whatever. See, what happens is obviously there will be some interdependent components or maybe one inside the other. That is when propagation will come in picture or CSS manipulation will come in picture. So you can say that, but this is not only when we use that. Even in a single HTML file also you can add shadow DOM. But then again, saying that you will move towards more into the HTML, and in HTML, you create or manually add the shadow DOM. Salesforce by default provided, so you need not to do anything, any extra thing to maintain shadow DOM or any extra thing to, turn it on or off for that matter of fact. It is by default available for you. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Just
Mohit, can we call this as in such a way like I have only one component?
Mhm.
Okay, we have a HTML structure in such a way that we have the parent HTML tag, underneath we have the child HTML tag. Okay,
Mhm.
so can we apply this concept within a same same HTML template? I mean, within a single.
Not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think then what when LW when Salesforce say that they by default provide shadow DOM in LWC, they mean within same HTML file.
Hmm. I just
Mohit,
got
if
it.
Mhm.
the example which you did, right, you have included the cherry component inside the div. Now, so if you use it outside the div also, and for example, that para you are giving a color to that, say suppose.
Mhm.
So in that case also, will the output will be same?
Sorry, okay, let me open the code.
Mhm. Did you get my question?
No, not yet. Can you repeat it again?
So what I'm trying to say is that
Mm-hmm.
if we in the div, like we have created one para, and in outside the div also we have created one para.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and say suppose outside the lightning card also we have created one para. So
Mm-hmm.
in that case,
This will also get
uh,
read because
red.
the whole child component is inside this div and this div is read.
Okay,
Okay, so whatever we have
okay.
written in it will be read.
Uh,
Whatever we have written in child will be read, except this part where we have specifically mentioned blue.
so we can we say that this is an in out approach of Shadow Dome?
Yeah, obviously, in an see it that is what it is saying, that from parent will not be able to force his thing on child. Getting my point? So
Okay,
here we have we told that everything will be read. Whatever is inside this div will be read. Right? That's what we said. Everything inside this div tag will be read. That's what we are trying to say here, right? Still, when it actually gets executed, this part is not in red because in the child we have mentioned our own thing. So even though child was inside the parent, even though parent tried to force his things on child was able to use his own thing because of the shadow dome. Okay?
okay.
Try to do this thing in the HTML and then see what happens.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Then you will understand the difference. Okay. And Manjunath, the same thing which you are saying now within same HTML tag, I don't think that will work. I think that will be by default, like that will be a single dome for that particular template.
Uh,
Yeah.
We'll
but
see.
but in the same HTML tag, we can create our own DOMs, right? We can create different DOMs, and we can create our own things inside those DOMs, right?
You're saying in the LWC?
In LWC or in JavaScript also, we can, in the HTML file, we can create many DOMs, right?
I
Separate
have
DOMs.
not, I have not got a single requirement where we needed to create a DOM in any HTML component in LWC. In HTML, we do it a lot in the web designing, but I've never got it in the LWC to attach a shadow DOM in it.
No, I'm just answering Manjunath's question that we
Mhm.
can create multiple shadow DOMs in HTML. So it's possible to, whatever he's saying, that parent and child tag in the same HTML file. It's possible, I think, in P also.
That is what my assumption, but I'm not sure. We have to check that.
Yeah.
Hmm. We can check that. Don't worry. Try to get any tag. Let's say when you try it on your own, Manjunath or anybody. Okay, let's try to get this DOM. Try to get this element by this dot template dot query selector and get this p tag. Okay, and then try to use the attach shadow and then try to render the inner HTML of it, or try to change the inner HTML of it and see if it is working or not. Okay,
Hmm.
we'll see if any confusion. We'll see that. Don't worry. I just don't want to over complicate it for now. But if in case this is even confusing, then we can even try to do this practically. Okay.
Yeah.
You people don't get scared. See, sometimes you will get things which will confuse you. The best way to solve it by doing it practically. Okay. Try to take a simple example. Try to do it on your own. What wrong can happen? You have console.log. Try to console it. Don't worry. Nothing wrong will happen. You will learn only. Okay. So don't get, what I want to say is that don't get scared of these things. These things are not difficult. These things are just confusing, not difficult. Okay.
Yeah, just stick to the basic line, shut
Yeah.
it down. That's it.
Yes, stick to the basic. See, guys, even in the interviews, also stick to the basics. I always get these questions that, sir, I've not worked in LWC, and I most of the time people say that no, I have not worked on LWC. That is why even interviewer was about to ask a simple question, he'll not ask, because and then again, basic concept. If you are clear, even the complex things will become easy for you in few days. It just matter of time and practice. Okay, but you'll have to work on basic things first. Otherwise, there is no shortcut. If you try to do the complex things in the beginning itself, it will then be very difficult for you, because you will, if you'll skip the basic, there will be problems. Okay, that is what I want to say. All right, let's just parent to child communication, sorry, child to parent communication. Let's do that. Okay, you guys have time, right?
Yeah, yeah, Mohit, we have time.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do
Yes.
that. Let's create two more components. Okay, and let's remove these components first. And if you guys, for new people, this is for new people, old people obviously will be able to see. If you want code of any of these basic components, that is also fine. Sometimes what we want is, we want to compare it with how Mohit has done it. Okay, so that is also fine. You just can ping me and I can share the component. Okay. Let me create a parent component. I'm going to expose it. I'm going to add it on the record page. And then let me also create a child component. Let's just write basic formatting. We always do. Lightning card. This is parent component. Save it. Let's copy it. Child component. Save it. Let's put child component in parent component. Okay. This is the basic things. We have done this earlier as well. Okay. Now, what we need to do, let's say we create a property in parent component. Okay. Let's call it name in parent. Okay. Similarly, we will create a property in child component. Okay. And we will call it name in child. Okay. Let's give it a basic name. What I'm going to do now, in the parent component, let me create a lightning input tag. Okay. Sorry, in the child component. So that input tag, I want to write name on it, and then I want to pass that name to parent component and want to display that name in the parent component. Okay. So here we will not be doing anything in the parent component. We will create an input tag in the child component, and then on change of that input tag, we will pass that input tag to parent component, and in the UI, we will be displaying the name in the parent component. That is the basic thing we want to do. Let me first do the basic code for it. So lightning G input. Label it as name. On change, I want to add as the name change handler. Save it. This is my child component. Okay. So let's write some code for the name change handler. Save it. This dot name in child is equals to event dot target dot value. Save it. Okay, now this value name in child I'll have to pass to parent component, and then I will have to display this in the parent component. Okay, so let's just display it as a p tag. Nothing fancy. Name in parent component. And what is the property value here is name in parent. So we will display that. But value in this property we will assign from the child property. Okay. So what happens here is I will create a custom event. Okay. First understand what is event. An event is an action that occurs in a web browser. Normally, what actions we have seen on name change or anything, whenever we click on button, those are actions, okay, which happens on a web browser. But then custom events are the events which we programmatically create inside JavaScript. Okay, so these are the custom events which we create via code. There were other traditional events which happens when we do something on the web page. Sorry, let me put this monthly mute. Okay, so now traditional events are the events which are the action that occurs in the web browser, like this name change handler. This name change handler is an event which will occur when we change the name in this input tag. And then this is the handler. We also call it event listener. Event listener is nothing but a piece of code which gets executed when an event occurs. Okay, so we have events, we have event handler. Then we have custom event. Custom events are the events which we create programmatically in order to invoke something. Okay, so here, in order to pass data from child to parent component, we will have to create a custom event. Okay, how do we create it? We will create it like this. Const my event. This is the name of your event, and then this is the syntax of it. New custom event, and inside that we'll have to give it a name, and then there is a property. Okay, let's give it a name change. And here we will give it a value. So detail equals to this dot name in child. So we want to pass this name to our parent component. So we will pass it to parent component like this. Okay. And then once we create it, then we just have to this dot after this within this code itself. This dot dispatch event, and then you will write the name my event here. Okay. So let's revise what we did. Okay. There is an input tag on our HTML on change of, we are calling this handler name change handler. when this name handler will called, we will assign the target value in this property name in child, and then we are creating a custom event. We are naming it as my event. Okay, and this is the name we will be using on the parent component. Shortly we will see how. And then we are passing detail. This is how we pass the value to our parent component, and this is how we dispatch this event. Now we will dispatch it. Till now it is not aware that where it is going. Okay, so we will dispatch it here. But in the parent component, we have appended our child component, and this event is happening on the child component. So how do we get it? In the HTML code of our child component, or we can say in the HTML code of our parent component, on the line where we have added the child component, we will add the event handler attribute. Okay, how we will do that? Let's see that. Okay, so let's go to the parent component and see here what name we give here is on name change, right? Copy that, go to the code, just write down on and paste the value which we copied, and then we can create a handler here. Okay, in the parent there is no handler yet, so let's call it name change handler on parent. Okay, let's save it. Let's go to the JavaScript file of parent and write down some code for it. Okay. This is happening on an event. We are creating a custom event that is also an event. So it will get an event as an input, and then we will assign the value. So this dot name in parent is equals to event. And if you see how we pass the value, we created a custom event, and then there is a detail property. Okay, so we will just use event dot detail, and that will give us the value in the name in parent property. We are displaying name in parent property here, so I think we are good now. We will revise it again once we display it happening live on the screen. Okay, let's save it. Let's go to the HTML and let's go to our Salesforce and let us see if it is working or not. So let's edit the page. And let us first remove this setter component, and let us try to add the parent component. Let's try to save it. Go back here. Refresh it. Okay, now currently we're not displaying anything. Let's try to write down name in it. Whatever name we are writing in the child component is getting displayed in the parent component. This is how we have passed the value from child component to parent component. Remember, this is just one way of doing it. We call it adding event handler on the HTML, or we can say adding event handler on the HTML attribute. This is one way of doing it. There is another way of doing it, that is adding event listener on the parents constructor. So in that way, we will not even use the HTML file. So here what we did, in the parent components HTML, we have added this handler, or we can say attribute here on name change, and then we created a handler. There is another way by which we can just remove this and completely do this thing within the JavaScript. Okay, that is the second way to communicate from child to parent, which I will do tomorrow. Okay, for now, I want you to practice this way on your own and come up with your questions tomorrow. We will first take questions on this and then I'll teach you the second way of doing it. Okay, sounds good?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. All right, just a second.